Welcome to episode 6 of season 2 of the Morrell Speaks podcast. Have another special guest with me today. There's so many things I can say to describe him. He's a multi-preneur, successful businessman, somebody that's a man of faith, somebody I look up to, and somebody who's family oriented. There's so many things that's so admirable about this guy. We have with us today the one and only Dan Young.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. So, with every episode, I start with the same question: Who is Dan Young? Who are you?
I would say, first and foremost, my identity is really in Christ. I'm a son. I'm a husband, a father, and my goal is to use business to be a platform to affect the kingdom and help people.
That's great, man. So tell us a little bit about your history, where you're from, how you got here, all those things.
Yeah. So I was actually born in Texas, moved to Indiana when I was 5. I grew up on the south side of Indianapolis, and then went to college at IPFW, Fort Wayne. So I took construction tech there. In 2006, my mom, she actually was raised in Marion. She graduated from Marion High School. It would have been in 1970. So probably went to high school with your family. So she had been here for years, and she kept on pressing me, hey, there's this family you got to meet. You got this church we got you to come check out. It was Bethel. And so in 2006, I came and visited and met Todd Dalton. And he was really pressing me. So I ended up going back to Fort Wayne. I quit my job, canceled my lease, and then I packed my bags the next day. I moved to Marion after knowing Todd for like 24 hours.
Wow.
There was just a connection. There was something. I knew I was supposed to be here. So that was in 2006. And for the next year, I had moved in with my mom. I was trying to help her through a couple things. And Todd kept on saying, like, hey, like, what's your plan? What if God would ask you to stay here? I'm like, God's not asking me to stay in Marion, right? I was from a big city. That's all I knew. And so, we were here, and they were like, bonfires on a Friday night, going down to the Circle K and getting a Polar Pop, and cooking hot dogs over a fire. I'm like, this is not what I'm used to, right? And so I didn't envision myself living more of a rural lifestyle, right? Because I'm used to a big city. So he kept on pushing and asking, like, what if God asked you? And I'm like, man, he wouldn't do that. So here we are in 2024. I'm still here. So in 2009, we had started our first business, really began putting down roots, and have spent the last 15 years just, basically wanting to serve the community, and have made it my home.
Wow, man, that's a very impressive story, man. So one of the reasons I use this podcast is to encourage people to either come to Marion or encourage people who are in Marion how they can be successful. So let's do one at a time. The first one is, if you were trying to convince somebody to come to Marion and relocate like you did, what were some of the things you would say that would be attractive for someone coming here?
Yeah, for me, where you live is about people. Right. And so the thing that I love about Marion is the people I've connected with, the relationships that I've built. It's a completely different life. I could never imagine moving to Indianapolis now that I've lived a lifestyle where the culture, for us, the culture is, man, we're going out on the boat, we're fishing, we're hunting, we're out in the woods, and we're hiking on trails, we're riding quads. Bonfires, cookouts, smoking meat, getting around the campfire. And it's a different lifestyle. When I lived in Indianapolis, you're going to a restaurant and dropping $100 for a meal. And here we're doing a cookout and feeding the whole family for $100. Right. And so it's a slower lifestyle. I remember when I moved here, Gil Bazan, we were good friends, and I lived on the south side on 38th Street. And he was up on the north side, and I said, "Hey, man, let's get connected together, whatever." And he's like, "Man, I don't feel like driving all the way to the north side." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't feel like driving to the north side? It's 7 minutes."
That's hilarious, man.
Right? Like, I can't get 4 blocks in Indianapolis in 7 minutes.
Right.
And so I really like that. Corey Lee, good friend of mine too. Like, he's in Indy, and that's what he talks about time. Like, if I need to go to the grocery store, it's an hour.
That's crazy,
right?
Man.
And so it's so simple to get around. I know a lot of people, and so you're in a grocery store and you're hugging everybody, and it feels more like a big family.
Yeah.
And everybody's feels a lot more connected. Where in Indianapolis, you're a drop in the bucket, right? Like you get lost. And here you can grow pretty deep roots pretty fast and get to know good people really quickly, and people try to take care of each other. It's a town where if you're driving down the road and you got a pop tire, somebody's probably going to stop and talk to you and ask, hey man, you need help.
Yeah.
Right? And we're not doing that in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a different culture. It's a different vibe.
Yeah, 100%. Marion is very giving and forgiving. That's one thing about this city that's great. So the second part of the question I wanted to ask is someone looking to obtain success in Marion. And the reason I ask this is because so often I hear that, it's impossible to be successful in this city. So what's some advice or even some tips you have for somebody who's looking to become, successful in our city? Yeah,
so success in business is about supply and demand, right? So there has to be a need, and then somebody's got to supply that need. When we came in, we came on the coattails of a roofing company that had been here since the 1800s. They had served the community very well. They'd been very successful. Their whole family had been very successful, and they were at the point where they were fourth or fifth generation. They'd helped roof the White House.
Wow!
And a lot of people we don't hear these stories. But they were at the point where they were retiring, they were hanging up their hat, and there was an opening in the marketplace. And so when we're opening a business, the first thing I'm looking for is there demand? And in most communities, there is demand. Is there supply, right? And so if I'm going to move to Marion and open a business, I'm not opening another cheeseburger fast food restaurant. We have a ton of them.
Right.
There's a lot of demand, but there's a ton of supply. Right, so we opened up the Convenant Place. When we bought the building, we really bought the building because we wanted to serve the surrounding area. It was a building that was sitting empty. It was dilapidating. It was 7 years with nobody in it. And so we really bought the building not because we had a business plan, but because we knew that building needed to be acquired, and we didn't want to see it go to waste. It was a very nice building. So once we bought it, we asked ourselves, what does the community need? Right? And that's what we landed on, was a venue that could host 350 people, that could be indoors or outdoors. And when you look, there's a couple of other events, venues that could do that. There's not a lot,
right,
but there's a ton of demand. And so I think when you're looking at a business model, right, you start off with supply and demand. And then second is when you go and you do it, just do it right.
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of the times, when people are starting businesses, if they're cutting corners, and they're not doing things the right way, they're not taking care of their customer. Business is so simple. It's about people, right? You have a product. Do people want it? Are you taking care of them when you give it to them? If you make a mistake, are you taking care of it, right? And so it's not complicated. We've been very successful, top 100 roofing companies in the United States.
Wow, congratulations.
And I'm not saying it to be braggadocious.
No, that's good. That's worth an applause.
The reason I say that is, when I'm on podcasts, we're talking, people like, where's your roofing company?
Yeah.
And I'll say, Marion. They're what? From where? What is Marion? Right.
Right.
On the national stage, people don't hear about Marion,
yep,
but we're farm raising companies like Morrell and Kingdom that are on the national stage, right?
100%.
We got basketball players on the national stage. There's a lot of very interesting things that are coming out of Marion if we're willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so a couple of things that come out of that. One, Marion doesn't do a good job telling the story of our good things. Like I say over and over, like if something bad happens, the whole city will know in like 2 minutes.
That's right.
But all the good stuff, you may never hear about it. And for some reason, we struggle telling that story. And then for another part I want to get into is your business. We haven't mentioned what it is yet. So tell us about your main business. Yeah.
So it's Kingdom Roofing Systems. We started here in 2012. The origin was really interesting. So what happened is in 2010, October of 2010, there was a very large hailstorm that hit Marion. And at the time, I was running another company, Kingdom Services, and we were doing lawn care, landscape, tree removal, things like that. And I had a couple of friends that had houses that were affected by the hailstorm. And there was out of town, what we call storm chasers, that had come in, had taken their down payment, and then vanished.
Oh, man.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so I heard the complaints. I had a background in construction. I'd worked for Marion Steel, designed structural steel. We were doing light construction with our services businesses. And I was just in prayer one day, and I felt like the Holy Spirit said, stop complaining about it and start doing something about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we struggle with just as people. But I feel like as people part of a community and as Christians, we have a responsibility to not just complain, but to do. Like, if I'm going to complain about it, I better be doing something too.
Yeah,
don't just complain about it, right?
Yeah,
right. Like, if I'm in the middle of it and I'm in the muck and I'm in the trench, if I have a little bit of a bad day and I complain a little bit, okay, that's one thing. But don't be a backseat driver complaining.
Yeah.
Right. And so Holy Spirit said, "Well, do something about it." Right. So your people are being burnt. Do something about it. And we literally just started off with going to the area that had been affected by the storm and saying, "Hey, we can help you out with this." So I brought in a business partner who was a trained national storm chaser who was from Fairmount. We've been partners ever since. We've been together ever since 2012. And we just started going on helping people. And that was really the foundation, was just, how can we help? I've got construction experience. He has insurance experience. We can take care of this for you.
Yeah.
And that was really the origin. It was not complicated. We put $2,000 in a checking account, never put another dime in. Now, we went many years without getting paid.
Yeah.
We sacrificed on the front side, but it's grown into something that, employs a lot of people and helps a lot of people.
So one thing about you and your story and your business that is encouraging to me and excites me to tell this part of the story, you decided to headquarter yourself here.
That's right.
So why? Why did you do that?
Yeah, so we have an office in Marion, an office in Indianapolis, an office in Bloomington. And, my entire family outside of my mom is in Indianapolis. And my family on the south side is very well known. They're all architects, engineers. Everybody's in the housing, part of the industry. So we're doing multifamily, custom homes, storm chasers, architects, whatever. And I have all the reason to be on the south side. I went to Franklin Central. I went to Southport. I went to Roncalli. That's where the majority of my old relationships are. But for me, the relationships that I've spurred here are just as deep or deeper than most of those relationships. And here I actually feel like one of the things I enjoy about a smaller community versus a large city is I feel like I'm making an impact here.
Yeah.
I feel like we're actually moving the needle. And when I'm in Indianapolis, I have so many really good competitors that are doing really good things and really helping the community also, where here I feel like the things that we're doing, I get to physically see that impact, and the relationships to me is really number one. The people that we do life with, we live community. We've talked about that Hope City. We live community, right? Yeah. And when people come out and they visit and they see what we have going on, everybody says the same thing. Man, I wish I had this. We've got 7 families that live on one small cul-de-sac. We have some land, and they all have access to my garage. They got my garage. Todd runs on my garage door opener. He got the code to my front door. They just walk in and out of our house, and we truly do life together. Yeah. And I think most people today are yearning for that, right? And it's very rare as a whole, but I think it's easier to do in a community like Marion than it is in Indianapolis, where a lot of people don't even know their neighbors at all.
Right. 100%, man. So if you were to say, so you headquartered yourself here.
Yep, that's right.
And if we were trying to encourage someone else to make their headquarters here, what would you tell them?
So I'd first, and I'm not saying this because you're in the room, but first thing I'd say is when you have a staff like a Mayor Morrell who is willing to get behind you, willing to partner, and really ask, what can we do together? That's really important. You've got a staff here. In the mayor before he was great. We've had a lot of really good people. There's a ton of momentum right now, a lot of momentum, and there's a ground roots movement. Yeah. And when you're able to do this, what we're doing right now, and have conversations with the mayor, and the mayor's willing to hear you, and actually willing to invest alongside you, that's a big deal. Now, there's a cost that comes with it, right? The city's not paying for your business, but we can come in and support. Yes. We can help set you up, right? And so I think that's really important. When you have a staff that is willing to put their money where their mouth is, and their time, and their energy, and their heart, and their soul, and then when you've got a story like your story and the Morrell family story, that's a big deal, right? And not every city has that. Right. And so I think that's a big part of it. I know a lot of the confidence in business comes from who's in government positions, right? Because some are very business friendly. Yeah. Not all are. Right. And Marion is a very business friendly city that the goal is to try to help business owners win. Yes. Right. So we can employ people, pay taxes, it goes to the and then it's a full cycle, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a highlight snippet. I'm going to make sure I pull that out. Yeah. Marion is a city that wants to help business owners win. I like it. We're going to keep doing that.
Yeah.
So we talked about Kingdom. Now lean a little bit more into the Convenant Place. Share about what that is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it was actually a school. So Hope City, the history out there was the Roosevelt Elementary School is on the corner of 350. It's just north of Shiloh Park. It was an elementary school through I think it started in the 40s. Okay. Eventually, it ended up being acquired by a company called The Crossing. The Crossing, the whole vision was under 18, they had homes that people would send, let's say, children that are struggling, right? Under 18 and they're struggling. And so parents would say, hey, we're going to send our son, our daughter here. Mm-hmm. They would have homes that were for boys, homes that were for girls. They had their own private school. So in 2008, we took over the whole facility. It was an international facility that had headquarters in Canada, the U.S., and the Dominican Republic. So they had removed their headquarters from Marion. We had taken over. We've been there since 2008. That school was shut down at that time. And so it had been up for sale for 6 or 7 years. It went on to auction, I think, 4 times and didn't sell. Well, I ended up buying the land directly to the west of that, built my home, and then my pastors and a couple of my friends ended up buying the other homes that were on that property. They parceled everything off. And so the school is literally directly next door, and they've got a busted pipe, and it's damaging the school, and nobody's using it, right? Nobody's visiting it, nobody's maintaining it and servicing it. And so we finally reached out to them and said, hey, I've bought this land from you, we've built our house, like I'm willing to buy this and do this for the community with it. So they gave us a very fair price. We invested a lot of money into it. But the Convenant Place, it actually houses, I believe it's 385 people. We market 350 to be conservative. So there's an indoor space, there's an exterior space, and so most people want to have their wedding outside, but if there's weather or something, they can come in. Yeah. But it's sitting on about 5 acres, beautiful. It's like a farmhouse rustic. We did your inaugural ball there. Yeah. But it's a space that's been newly renovated that has, something that's unique is with that style. Most of them, they don't have heating and air conditioning. We do. They don't have indoor and outdoor spaces. We've got bathrooms inside, and a lot of them don't have bathrooms inside. We have the groom room and the bride room inside. Sometimes they're in exterior buildings. And so the goal was to try to keep everything inside of the building and be able to have events out there year round. Yeah. We just did the Leading Men Who Cook. Last year we started our first national outdoor expo. So we had people in there that, hunting, fishing, stuff like that. They were bringing crafts that they had made. We've done a ton of events there. And so it's not just a wedding venue. We do a lot of wedding events, but we're also doing things like your inaugural ball.
Yeah, that's great, man. So we appreciate you for being so invested in our city. So my last question, second to last question, from your perspective, what does Marion need as a city to be successful?
What we really need is our citizens to continue to have ownership. And so I think what we do so often is we want to look at politicians and say, you're going to solve my problem. Mm-hmm. And that's just not a thing, right? Like, they can help create an environment that encourages growth, profit, just being healthy. But it's like saying we've got healthy ground, but I'm not putting a seed in it. Yeah. Right. So the politicians, people that are elected officials, they can come in and they can give us healthy ground. Mm-hmm. I have to till the ground, put the dirt in, or put the seed in the dirt and water. It's like they can give us a good foundation. But it's the citizens that are really going to make the community what we want it to be. Right? We have to have pride. One of the things that I love that you're doing is the cleaning up Marion. Yeah. And when I go down, I texted you the other day, we're driving downtown, and my wife looks up and she says, man, this is Marion. Like, it looks so much different. That's good, yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, it is, we're picking up trash, like, got to have some pride in your community. 100%. Don't throw trash on the ground and then complain later, right? And a lot of what we do, we have to own and not just wait for, the government to come in and handle things. If you see something that needs addressed, get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the whole don't be a backseat driver.
Yeah.
We have to take ownership for our community, and we've got to be willing to help people, and we got to put our money where our mouth is. I mean, and some of that is maybe we don't have the money to give, but we have time.
Yeah.
We've got gifts and talents, right? And so use your gift and your talent to serve your community. And you can't only think about yourself, right? We're giving this community to our kids and our grandkids. What am I doing today that's going to help my grandkids in 40 years from now?
Yeah.
And it's so easy to be be short-sighted. And a lot of what we talk about in our house and my tight community is legacy. What legacy am I leaving? Mm-hmm. Right? And the legacy I leave is very intentional, right? Like we're building 5, 10, and 20-year plans that set generations up. One man can make a sacrifice, one woman can make a sacrifice that sets an entire legacy, entire multi-generations up forever. Right. Your grandpa did it. Yeah. Right? The decisions that he made with the flooring company 60 years ago, 50 years ago is still affecting your family today.
Definitely. Yep.
Right? 100%. But it was a sacrifice. Yeah. Right? And he didn't just think about himself.
Yep. That's 100% true, man. That's great stuff. So last one, man. What's next for Dan Young? What's next?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So right now, my goal is to continue transitioning into community service. And so the first, 12, 15 years of my professional career was really to build a foundation in our business that was healthy and could take care of our employees and our customers and the community. And so now I'm slowly transitioning more and more time to more of what I would consider like community service. And so like serving on the BZA board, as an example, some of the projects that we've been talking about, the public-private sector, projects. And I, Riddle had said it during one of our meetings, like we have a responsibility to our community. Right. The community has treated us well. Every time we put on a roof, put on gutters, put on siding, every time we rent out the venue, they've selected us. We're honored, and we need to turn around and reinvest back in the community. And so in the beginning, a lot of it's just survival, right? You're just trying to make payroll. Right. And then you get to the point where it's like, I got a little bit of stability. And then when you get to the point where you're starting to thrive, that's really when I feel like it's our responsibility to start taking more and more, slowly starting to take more and more energy into how can I truly serve my community. That's not maybe it's not business related, but it's just how do I help make my community a better place? And so I'm probably a little bit of the journey that you're on of transitioning over into, I don't know if I'd call it political. I'd say just more community service. Like, how do I help my community be better? Right.
100%. Well, man, I appreciate you for coming on the show, man. This has been so many great nuggets. Can't be a backseat driver. That's what keeps sticking in my head. Don't be a backseat driver. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Morrell Speaks. Thank you for all our listeners, whether you're local, statewide, international. We appreciate you. It's available on all major streaming platforms and now YouTube as well. Thank you.